Okay, welcome to Rigging on Thursday with the Coach, everybody. We're glad to be back here at the headquarters of Big Bite Baits to talk to you today. I got Jordan with me. Jordan, you doing all right today?
Doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, except it's getting to be kind of pretty nasty weather outside. So if you want to go fishing today, you can't. That's the bad thing about it. But anyway, got several things I want to run over real quick, and then we're going to go get into our show today. But while I'm at it, we're talking about the Mega Pack. We've got these online right now, I believe. Tell us a little bit about that, Jordan.
Sure. So to find out what all comes in a Mega Pack and to easily purchase one, just go to bigbitebaits.com/Mega Pack, and it'll have a list for you there.
Right, it's a good way to buy baits. I think you get 100 count in the bag, and you actually get a discount because you're buying it in bulk. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway, check that out on the website, our Mega Pack. Comes in this nice little roll-ups, donut type bag. It's easy to access. Sits right in your boat. It has a flat bottom where you can just sit it down. It works real well. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up to everybody today so they would know about that. Questions from last week. Did we have some questions left over from last week?
Yeah, the first one I got here is from Manchild saying, "I'm ready for spring already."
Yeah, me and you too, man, child. I tell you what, we're going to go big boy on some fish. It'll all be good for sure. No doubt.
Next one I got from MJ Fishing is, "What do I throw when it's 30 degrees out?"
If I had to pick one winter bait that I would probably pick up and throw, I would throw a chatterbait probably, and I'd put a swim on the back of it, and that's probably the way I'd go in that really cold water. Those fish are sluggish from the cool weather, and basically it gives them that vibration and things they need to maybe stimulate a bite. So that's probably how I would attack that.
Okay, and then I have a question from Ben Silcott and from Hayden Horn, wondering your favorite springtime baits.
I have several things I like in the spring, actually. Obviously, I'll throw the fighting frog quite a bit in the spring. I like to throw our craw tube. I call that one of my best kept secrets. I like the old style craw tube, but now the swimming craw tube is very productive as well. But that's one of the things I like to toss and pitch around the grass on the banks, and for bedding fish. Seems to work real well for me. And then I do quite a bit of deep water fishing in the spring, so I might use the proverbial Carolina rig of some variety, or I use a big spinnerbait quite a bit and put a suicide shad on the back of it. But that's some of the things I like to do in the spring.
Okay, we've got a bunch more questions here. Let's maybe do our presentation and get to those in a minute.
Okay, we can do that. That'll be great. Well, today I thought I'd talk about something that was a little bit different than we've talked about. We've had all these shows. We've been doing this over a year now. And something we haven't touched on, we've talked a lot about swim baits, and we've mentioned it on several occasions. But I thought today I might just bring out the old Alabama rig and let's talk about it. And most of you are familiar with the Alabama rig. It's just a wire umbrella rig, has no weights on it. And you can, the nice thing about the umbrella rig is you can do a lot of different things with it. So we're going to show you 3 ways today that we rigged it, that 3 different ways to do it, and kind of some ideas. The type of jig heads we use and the kind of baits we use. So this first opportunity I have here is just your typical umbrella rig. It has Pro Swimmers on it. It has a 3.8 Pro Swimmer on it. It has our new Truex swimmer head on it. And of course that's the albino shad color. And then something I really like to do on my Alabama rig a lot is put what I call a teaser in the middle. I personally never throw 5 of the same color baits. I always put something different in the middle. This one being a Rayburn Red, which is one of the new colors, by the way, in the Pro Swimmer, looks really good. Or I would use maybe if I was using a suicide shad, which I'll get to in a minute, I'd put a citrus shad maybe in the middle. But I always try to put some kind of different kind of teaser in the middle. I typically like a smaller bait, like this is a 3.8. That looks really good to me. And it really will illustrate a group of shad in the water. So the second one I want to share today is the second Alabama rig. This one is rigged up with our swimmer head, with our swim bait head. And this particular jig has a little bit stouter hook than the swimmer head does. And as a result, you can tug and pull on a little bit more. It's a little more stiff, stiff. Nice thing about this rig is if you get hung up, you can pull it loose. The hook will probably bend. This one you got to pull a little bit harder to get it loose. But I got this particular one rigged with 5-inch suicide shads, and we put a pearly shad in the middle as a teaser. Now, you can kind of dictate the size of lead that you like to use by how deep you're going to fish this. Typically, here on my lake, I use 1/4 of an ounce or either 1/8 of an ounce all the way around mine, depending. But some people use bigger. It all depends on how deep you're going to target your fish. Something, that's kind of up to you. But that's it, basically rigged with our swim bait head with suicide shads. Looks pretty good. Now, the alternative to that suicide shad is I use a suicide shad quite a bit with it, but I like the 3.5 inch model on mine. I like that smaller bait on my Alabama rig, and that's just an example of our 3.5 that you can use with it. So, and once again, it comes in every color the 3.5 does that the 5 inch comes in. So you don't have to worry about not being able to get a particular color in that size. You can do both. So that's a little bit of food for thought for you. Okay, and then the third Alabama rig that we've got today, we've got it rigged up on our finesse swimmer. Okay, and we've got it on what we call a D jig, which also has a heavy hook in it, and it's a nice looking little presentation. This particular jig has a glass eye in it, or a glass type eye in it, so it's kind of interesting. We've got this rigged up with finesse swimmers. We've got the pearl ones on the outside with a like an albino shad in the middle as a teaser bait. But kind of gives you an idea. And once again, these come in the same sizes as any of our other jig heads, and you can rig it. So those are some different ways in which you can rig it. You can use finesse swimmers, you could use suicide shads, use pro swimmers, and then if you like our old cane thumper that we used to have, that we still have, that's still a really, really good bait. We've just got so many baits now. Sometimes you forget about this one. This thing works tremendously well. In the beginning, that's all we had. I've caught lots of fish on using the cane thumper on my Alabama rig. So something else to look at, and it comes in like 20 different colors as well. So that just kind of gives you some ideas of some different ways to throw your Alabama rig. I know a question will come up probably on there. What kind of line do you throw an Alabama rig on? I think that's a good question, and it may be one of the questions you're going to ask me in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and answer that. I prefer to like to throw it on braid. That way, if you do hang it, you can pull it loose, and most of the time you don't lose your Alabama rig. You probably will bend the hook out, which that's just a matter of either putting a new jig head on or taking your needle those pliers out and fixing it. Where if you usually use like a monofilament or a fluorocarbon, it's bad about breaking it, and you lose your rig right out of the gate, and you're out $14 or $15. So that's kind of how I look at that. And also you can cast that braid a long way. So you want to make long sweeping casts with it, you can. So that's kind of how I do it. I usually use a real stiff rod, like a flipping stick, some kind of heavy tone rod, because if you get 2 or 3 on there at one time, you got a pretty good battle on your hands, you know. I fished a tournament the other year with a guy who won the tournament in 2 casts.
Wow.
He had right at 20 pounds, and he caught him in 2 casts and was done. So, you know, it's kind of crazy. It's a different way to look at things for sure. Okay, questions for today, Jordan. Let's talk a little bit about what all people are interested in.
Sure. Drop Shotters Fishing is wondering where to fish an Alabama rig.
I usually use the Alabama rig like out in deeper water over ledges or some type of structure. I know that Raji Brown back in the day when he broke the record up at Chickamauga with the Alabama rig was throwing it over submerged brush. I think it's an open water style bait. At least my experiences with it have been in open water type situations, you know, throwing it over humps, on ledges, out on flats, that type of thing.
Okay. And now I have North Shelton asking to go over the jig heads on each rig one more time real quick.
Okay, no problem. On this jig head here, we have the swimmer head. The swim bait head. I get those confused somehow, but that's our swim bait head. It is an unpainted head, so you'll know. Okay, on this rig is the new True X swimmer head. Okay, that's the modernized swimmer head. Okay, it has a little lighter wire hook in it. They all have keepers on them though, by the way. And then on this particular rig, we've got the D jig, which comes in red, white, and black. And it has a heavy hook in it. Its keeper is different, however, though. Instead of having a wire keeper, it just has a push-on top keeper. So it's a little different, okay?
Okay.
All right. I know typically, I will say this, typically most people either use the swimmer head or the swim bait head. The D-jig head is more for saltwater applications.
All right. I have another question here from Robert Holland. He's wondering, what is a good small profile flipping bait for pre-spawn?
In talking with our pros, the Yo Daddy is the one that most of them will tell you. It's a little bit more compact than our other flipping style baits. So I would highly recommend to try the Yo Daddy. Has a real good body, meaty. You can flip it real well. Okay.
Now I have Mark the Shark asking, what is your favorite thing to throw right now if you're in Florida?
If I was in Florida, you know, the water's going to be warmer there, so you can do a lot of different things. I know that down there typically, obviously punching's always a big deal in Florida, but I think that they do real well throwing like a long paddle tail worm, swimming it, as well as like a cane thumper, swimming it. along those grass lines and tule type beds is the things that I have researched and have found out to work pretty good in Florida this time of the year.
Okay, another good one from Sean Schultz. How would you set up one of these A-rigs if you were targeting smallmouth?
That's a good question. I've never done that, but I would think you basically set it up the same way you would a largemouth. I would downsize my baits a little bit.
Right.
I would probably go with a swimmer head probably if I were doing it up there, and I would probably go with a smaller. We even have a 2.8 and a 3.3 in this, so you can downsize as much as you want to. And and then find the color of the forage. We make one that's a green looking color. It would look kind of like a goby that you could use. But that's kind of how I probably would set my rig up if I were going up there to smallmouth fish. I'd use the swimmer head. I believe that's what Garrett had told me, Garrett Paquette, one time. So something to think about.
All right, that's probably enough time for this
Okay,
week.
well, we've enjoyed being with you today, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday here at Big Bite Baits. Till then, have a good day.